Hey folks, Matthew here doing another beta impressions video, this time for a game called Prison Architect. Well, I say beta. The version you're looking at is actually listed as Alpha 37, but it's the last version before the game's release in October, so it's the beta in all practical senses. Furthermore, it's functionally complete, as the month before launch is going to be spent squashing bugs, as described in the developer's update video, so now is as good a time to talk about it as any. As stated, the game is called Prison Architect, and in a nice example of the title as a perfect summary, it's a game where you design and build a prison. The game is by Introversion Software, a small UK developer. Their previous games are, in order, Uplink, Darwinia, Defcon, and Multiwinia. The only one of those that I've played is Darwinia, which was alright. Not great, but good for a few hours entertainment. But I digress. Prison Architect is a crowdfunded game, first available to fund in September of 2012, and has received fairly regular updates every month since that time, which range from the introduction of huge new features and mechanics to bug bashing of existing features. Both equally important in game development, of course. There is no point in having a feature or mechanic if it's bugged such that it doesn't work half the time. As before, I'll start with what I like about this game. Most obvious thing to talk about is the game's presentation. As you can see, during gameplay you are treated to a two-dimensional top-down perspective of the game area, with your construction and management tools around the edge, as you would expect for a game like this. The UI is reasonably well organised, with submenus for staff, rooms, objects and so forth, though with so many options it can be difficult to find things at times. This is mitigated somewhat by the larger submenus, objects and rooms specifically, having search features, so as long as you know what you're looking for, you can find it relatively quickly. Outside of the UI, the models for objects and NPCs and so forth have a cel-shaded look about them, which gives every object a clear and definite shape, presumably so they can be identified quickly at a distance. I found this to work well, never having found myself in doubt as to which object was which when I looked for them. In terms of gameplay, you are given quite a lot of options for what you can do with your prison. Do you, for example, want to build a spacious prison that keeps your inmates happy and which is all about their education and reform? You can build that. Conversely, you want to build a prison that's confined and restrictive, where your inmates are unhappy but there are armed guards throughout, maintaining the peace by force? You can build that also. You want something in between? Sure, why not? Not all options are available from the get-go though, as you need to have some kind of progression, but you can unlock everything fairly quickly if you pace it correctly. You really can build whatever prison you might want to in this game. And this variety in gameplay options emerges from the fact that under the game's surface there's quite a complex simulation running. Every inmate has a personality that can affect their behaviour, and they also have needs such as hunger or family, which can be satisfied to help keep them happy, or not satisfied as the case may be. The staff, such as guards, can become tired, which make them less effective. Inmates will react differently whether your guards are armed or not. If you want to, you can also tinker with the logistics of your prison, making sure that the food and workshop materials can get to the places they need to be. There really is far too much for me to go into any sort of detail here, as I could probably do a whole video on these systems just on their own. And there are several systems that I haven't even had a chance to look at myself yet, so I'll look forward to exploring these in the future. Finally, in relation to what's good about the game, it's worth noting that the game has fairly extensive mod support, and, as you would expect, a large number of mods available from various locations. The mods can range from simply translating the game into another language, through new rooms or objects, or changing the mechanics of existing rooms or objects, and right up to entire prisons that players have constructed. This is a consequence of the simulation mentioned previously. It's fairly easy for a modder to go in and modify or add to the pre-existing systems or mechanics. There really is a lot to explore here, should you ever become bored of the vanilla game, with over 12,000 mods listed on the Steam Workshop page alone, at time of recording. As for what's bad about the game, it can be overwhelming in a number of ways. For starters, while there is a tutorial at the beginning to run you through the basics of building construction, object placement, utility management and so forth, opening up a new game world and being presented with the huge open game area can be a bit daunting, particularly if you don't have a vision of how you want your prison to look ahead of time. Similarly, if you're a new player. It can be difficult to know which buildings to prioritize the construction of, as the game, at least initially, doesn't give you an indication of what you really need. Although the grant system helps in this regard, giving you cash rewards for building particular buildings or sets of buildings, such as a holding cell or a medical center, things like that. But the flip side of that is that you need to know about the grants in the first place to use them, so maybe a little more tutorial in this direction would possibly be helpful. Moving on to later in the game, I mentioned before about how you can tinker with the logistics of your prison, and about looking after the needs of your inmates, which is simple enough early on. However, when you get later in the game and you get a bigger prison with hundreds of inmates, it can be a little difficult to track down where the inefficiency is occurring and why an inmate's needs are going unsatisfied even when the facilities are there. Though the game does try and give you lots of hints when something is wrong, you just have to keep an eye on things. Finally, on what's bad, there isn't really an endgame. The only endgame of note is that you build and grow your prison to the point where you can sell it, and then use those funds to build a newer, bigger prison. There is something to be said for doing so, as you can build a more robust prison from the outset, and so take in more dangerous prisoners earlier, and so make more money, but that's about it. There are some game over conditions where you do such a bad job that you can be fired from your prison management position, or even be locked up in your own prison, so that's fun and can form another sort of endgame. I haven't played enough to really experience those systems yet, so I won't comment on them in specifics. Having listed these issues though, I admit these are not unique problems. These are the same sort of issues that I would suggest if I were doing a video on, say, Cities Skylines or any other games like that. I've talked about the problems with the logistics of larger prisons, and anyone who's played Cities Skylines knows the joy of trying to track down the cause of traffic jams in a larger city. And the reason for those traffic jams is the same as the reasons for the logistical issues in larger prisons. They're simply a consequence of the simulation. You can't avoid them completely, you just have to mitigate them. So, in conclusion, while the game can be a little overwhelming in places, it's well presented, and there's a complex simulation under the surface that allows for a wide variety of gameplay options. If you're a fan of city builders or management games, things of that nature, you'll probably enjoy this one. There's a lot to do here, and lots of ways to do it. And if you do manage to exhaust the vanilla game, the mods can extend the life of the game even further. And so those are my impressions of the Prison Architect beta, in inverted commas. If you've liked what you've seen and want to find out more, you can do so at prison-architect.com, or alternatively the game is available on Steam if you so wish. I've been Matthew, thanks again for watching, and I will see you again.